Happy Friday and welcome back to The Average Fisherman, everybody. Today is September 1st, and the first day of small game season here in Louisiana is October 7th, which means there is exactly 5 weeks from tomorrow when we have our first opening day of hunting season for 2023. So, as everybody here knows, I'm pretty excited about this. I think I'm pretty transparent in that regard. And as kind of getting us to be the tradition here on the channel, the Friday episodes are usually the ones that I've been doing lately that are the more involved and more in-depth ones, and today's going to be no exception. So, I have a couple firearms laid out here for me to show to you guys and to discuss today's topic, which is small game hunting. As I posted in the last video with the shell vest, and I got a couple replies, quite a few people liked it more than I thought they would, to be honest, and one of my longtime viewers, in fact, one of the original viewers of this channel, Mr. Pedro Benitez, asked me to talk about everything when it comes to small game hunting. Although, to be honest with you guys, I can make a video every day for like the next 4 years, and I still wouldn't be able to get through everything when it comes to hunting. However, I figured, where to start off but at the beginning, and that is ammunition and firearm choices when you're doing small game hunting. So small game here in Louisiana comprises primarily squirrel and rabbits, primarily the former, squirrels, okay? Rabbits get lumped in there too because you can also hunt rabbits at the same time. And it coincides with, well, actually the first split of dove season is starting next week, and kind of the first weekend in October is the beginning of the second split of dove season. So we're going to also talk about some dove stuff here because I do like to shoot doves on the occasion. So, just to give you guys disclaimer, there's a wide variety of choices available for small game hunting. There really is no wrong answer when it comes to what you're using, as long as it's effective and humane, okay? That part is really key to me, humane. I don't like shooting animals and have them, suffer and things of that nature. So my choices in ammunition and calibers and stuff like that is surrounding the issue of humane, clean kills and effectiveness, okay? So that's why I choose the things that I choose. So we're going to go over the firearms first, and I use two primary shotguns here, okay? One I use earlier in the season, and one I tend to use later in the season, and I'll explain why. So the early season gun that I like the most is this one. This is a Remington 1100 LT20. It is a gas-operated semi-automatic 20 gauge, and it shoots 2 3/4 inch shells. It is not capable of firing 3-inch magnums, and I really don't see the purpose behind it. But it is my faithful companion squirrel hunting ever since I was just big enough to hold this damn thing. So this was my grandfather's gun, and I talked about it last winter when it got back from the gunsmith being repaired, and it is my primary firearm when I go shooting small game, squirrels and rabbits. So this is the one I choose usually earlier in the season, or let's be honest with you, most of the time, if I'm shooting squirrel and rabbits, I'm shooting this. It does not have screw-in chokes. It is a fixed modified, okay? And I'll explain what all that means in a moment. So this is a fixed modified shotgun. It is also not capable of shooting steel, okay? It is not rated for steel shot. This is an older shotgun, which is fine with me. I don't hunt ducks anyway, so steel shot is not a concern for me. So this is the primary gun that I'll use. Later in the season, okay, and there's a specific reason why I change guns, or will be changing guns. Because that Remington that I just showed you guys is a fixed modified choke, later in the season, when the leaves are down and stuff like that, squirrel hunting becomes a little bit more of a challenge, okay? The squirrels can see you from further away, and you can see them from further away. They're a little more wary. They've gotten accustomed to the hunting pressure and stuff like that, so you really need something that can reach out and get them. So I prefer full choke later in the season. Okay, so I will be using this. This shotgun is a Winchester 1500 XTR20. It is also 2 3/4 inch shell only and is not capable of shooting steel. Now, the thing that makes this one, and you'll notice the keen eyes will notice the screw-in choke already. Okay, so that's the full choke that I have screwed in here. So why do I choose two different firearms? Well, one, this Remington is my grandfather's gun, so that's one thing. And two, the Remington's also much lighter, being a light 20 gauge. Okay. However, for all intents and purposes, just to be honest with you guys, this is the superior firearm. It has the rotating locking bolt assembly. It is also a gas-operated semi-automatic, but it has a rotating locking bolt. The fit and finish on it is a little rough, but that's okay. It is an older Winchester. The checkering on it is cut checkering as opposed to press checkering, and you can see the difference there, that nice cut checkering there. And both of these guns have walnut stocks. This gun weighs a good 1.5 to 2 pounds more than the 1100 does, though. And as I've told you guys before, I really like walking around in the woods. I'm not a sitting kind of hunt kind of guy, which is why I don't like deer stands and that kind of thing. I like to walk around in the woods. So, especially with squirrel hunting, you can walk, 2, 3, 4 miles through the woods. And anybody who's walked through the woods knows walking through the woods is not like walking down the sidewalk, okay? Walking through the woods takes a lot of effort and it's tiring. So a lighter firearm really matters for me, which is why I choose 20 gauges, okay? Now, there's a lot of guys, including my own father, who choose bigger gauge shotguns than a 20. I find 20 ideal. And those that will say that 20 gauges are underpowered, that is not true at all. This gun that I'm holding in my hands right here has killed over 24 deer, okay? It's killed them with a mix of slugs and number 3 buckshot. So the power of a 20 gauge is more than sufficient to kill any game that walks in North America, okay? Any, and I'm talking elk included. With slugs, this thing will absolutely kill an elk or a moose, okay? So the power of it is not what's the critical factor. So there's a lot of people who, you need a 12 gauge to go hunt squirrels to knock them out them big tall trees. Never had an issue with a 20 gauge, okay? I've hunted all over the place with this particular gun with a modified choke, and I can knock the squirrels out of trees. Just saying. To say that a 20 gauge isn't enough to kill an animal is absolutely silly, okay? Especially if you have the full choke like this one, okay? Full choke can really reach out and get them. All right, and I'll explain all that again in a second. And just to show you what the chokes are, with the screw-in chokes, here's the Winchester screw-in chokes to that 1500 that's right there. This is what they look like, okay? That's a screw-in choke, and as you can see, it's just the very end of the barrel. So what you end up with as far as chokes go, and this is a keen part of the selection process with firearms when you're choosing a small game hunt, it's impossible to talk about what shot and what shot shells to use without also talking about the chokes, okay? For some reason in a lot of videos, a lot of people want to separate those two issues, and you really can't, okay? You really can't. Those are hand in hand, and they work together to give you the performance that you want. So, with a fixed modified choke, you would actually probably do better with like 7.5 shot, okay? The smaller shot gives you more pattern density at range, and because of the small, it gives you a nice uniform shot pattern. However, I shoot number 6s. Number 6 for me is my small game choice of shot. And let me show you what I'm talking about here. These are Remington Expresses. And you see the shot size right here is number 6. 1 ounce of number 6. Okay? That is a high base load, what is referred to as a high base load for a 20 gauge 2 3/4 inch. Okay, again, I do not shoot 3 inchers. I don't really see the need to do it. So a 1 inch load of number 6 shot is considered the high base load, and that's what I shoot at squirrels. You can get away with the lower base loads for rabbits because they're super easy to kill, ironically. A rabbit is much easier to kill humanely than a squirrel is because squirrels are tough, they're further away, etc., etc. But that is what I shoot exclusively at small game is high brass number 6. So, that all being said, there's a lot of people who do but you need a 22 rifle. I'm only going to eat squirrels that are shot in the head. That's a bunch of hooey in my opinion, but I do subscribe to the thought that there is a need for a 22 when you go out hunting squirrels. And many, many times, and you guys have seen this on this channel, I have killed many squirrels with this right here. So, carrying a shotgun and a rifle at the same time when you're squirrel hunting is not really feasible. I've done it, okay? I did it before I actually bought this pistol, but I found in the end, this is the best compromise. This is a Ruger Mark III. It is an older pistol. I bought it with the first paycheck I ever earned working as a nurse. Okay, this is what I bought myself so I could squirrel hunt with it. This is the Target model. I think this is the 5-inch barrel, bull barrel, of course, as you can see. And I have this nice reflex sight mounted on the top. The reflex sight box is right here. It's a North Tac MVR. That's what this sight is. Okay. I have this sighted on it, then dead on, so that whatever the dot is, there's a little different reticles you can choose, but whatever the center dot is on at 50 meters, not 50 yards, it is 50 meters. And yes, there's a difference. It will hit dead on at 50 meters. Okay. I tend to use 40 grain solids with this because, as anybody who's tried target shooting with a 22 knows, once you start getting up into the higher velocities, your accuracy kind of drops off a little bit. And when you're hand gunning for squirrels with a 5-inch barrel, you're not going to get the velocities out of it like you would with a rifle with a 20 or 22-inch barrel anyway, so that doesn't really matter. What counts is putting the bullet on target every single time you pull the trigger on the animal. And that requires accuracy. Now, these Ruger Mark pistols are extraordinarily accurate. They're as accurate as any rifle I've ever used. But you have to do your job. And in order to do that, I like the 40 grain, high velocity, solid nose bullets. Okay? So, let's get into the choke stuff that I kind of stepped off of for a little bit. So, what you end up with on the far ends of the spectrum, there's 3 primary chokes. Okay? There's intermediate grades, but there's 3 major sizes of chokes. Okay? There's improved cylinder, there's modified, and there's full. Okay? There's a couple grades in between those, but we're going to pass over that because that's neither here nor there for the purpose of what we're talking about. So, what does that mean? When you're talking about choke size, you're talking about the restriction of these screw-in chokes in relation to the full diameter of the barrel. Okay? So improved cylinder kind of has a little bit of restriction. Modified has a little bit more restriction. And full choke has full restriction. Okay? That helps you, in a way, knowing which choke you have in, because then you can judge, once you take your shotgun out and go pattern it, about the distance and pellet density that you'll need to hunt certain types of game. So I know that at modified choke, with number 6 shot, I have a 40-yard gun here, okay? I will not pull the trigger on a squirrel any further than 40 yards with this, because it's a modified choke, okay? This Winchester XTR 1500, I got about 45 or 50 yards, okay, with the full choke. So that ought to tell you. I get another 7 to 10 yards or so in distance, in effective distance with adequate pellet density. So, what you're doing is that screw-in choke, or if you have like this 1100, it's a fixed modified, means the end of the barrel is tapered just ever so slightly. So what you'll end up with is at closer ranges, improved cylinder will throw a big pattern, full choke will throw a small pattern, and modified, of course, it's in the middle, throws kind of an intermediate sized pattern. Okay? So, at the wider chokes, things like improved cylinder, they're really nice for dove hunting because you get a nice wide pattern at distance, and you don't actually have to like really be too terribly accurate with it, just to be honest with you guys, you know. But with doves, you're shooting size 8 shot, and you have a million of them, so you know, you put it up there, you're gonna probably hit something unless you're just way off. Full choke, you have to kind of do your business, right? That front bead needs to be on the target. You don't aim a shotgun. Let me just get that right out of the gate, since we're talking about shooting and stuff like that. Shotguns are not aimed, okay? You don't aim shotguns, you point them, okay? There's a big difference in those two things. These things have this ribbed section here, where when you look down the barrel, you look at the sight, or the bead at the top, you put the bead on whatever it is you want to hit, and you pull the trigger. When you're shooting shotguns, since you're pointing them, you leave both eyes open, okay? That is so you can judge range and movement. If a lot of your peripheral vision is taken up by, because you're closing one eye and you're looking through the gun, you're basically narrowing down your field of view to just what you can see over the rib of that gun. You need both eyes open so you can accurately judge range, okay? That's just how it's done. That's the proper way to fire a shotgun. You don't close one eye, you don't aim them, you point them at what you're going to hit, and boom, okay? So there you go. When small game hunting, like I just went over before, I like the number 6s, and here I have a bunch of different kinds. These are Fiocchi golden plated, golden pheasant, nickel plated number 6s. With both of these guns will shoot. That's the same as these, basically just a little bit different load. This is a 7.5 as opposed to a 6. And of course, my very favorite ammunition, the Winchester Super X high brass. Those are 2 3/4 inch, 1 ounce of number 6s. So they're identical loads to the Remington. So basically what it amounts to is, once you set on a load that you want, it doesn't really matter what company you buy it from, okay? As long as the specifications are the same, it should perform really closely to any other brand name. So these Remingtons and the Super X and even the old Federals, okay? I still have some Federals in the box that have the same specs. They all perform exactly the same. They're just different brand names. So don't get hung up on the, I gotta have this brand name. As long as the specs are good for your shotgun, they're gonna perform the way you expect them to, okay? I don't necessarily I won't go out and buy the bargain basement kind because I do want positive functioning. And any of those 3 brands, by the way, well, 4 brands that I really like when it comes to shotgun shells are Fiocchi, Remington, Winchester, and Federal, okay? Those are the 4 that I'll use. And I'll buy whichever one of those is the least expensive that has the specifications that I want, which is the 1 ounce, number 6, 2 3/4 inch shell, okay? The 22s I'll get into in a later video because that's a little bit more involved because it's a rifle, okay? A rifled bullet, all right? But as far as squirrel hunting and rabbit hunting goes, the 1 ounce, number 6, 20 gauge is what I've hunted with since, oh man. Like I said, I was barely big enough to hold the 1100, and that's when I started hunting with 20 gauge shotguns, and that's all I've done since. Have I hunted with 16s and 12s? Yes. Do I see a need for a 16 and 12? No. I've hunted with multiple different shotguns, and I always come back to the 20 and go, this is what I'm going to stick with. There's really no reason to go any further. My father, on the other hand, is a diehard 16 guy, so he loves his Winchester Model 12 16 gauge. And he thinks that thing is the bee's knees. And like I said, there's more than one way to skin a cat, proverbially speaking. You know, and it's to each his own. But I definitely see the benefits of the 20 gauge being lighter weight, a little more portable. The ammunition's a little less expensive, although it's harder to find now for some reason, which I haven't been able to figure out. I've been having to order all my ammunition. It's been finding boxes of 20 gauges is almost impossible at any of the local stores. But needless to say, carrying one of these things around in the woods for a long time, especially with the LT, the light 20 gauge, the 1100 here, it's much easier than carrying around a big 16 or a 12 gauge, because a 16 gauge is basically built on a 12 gauge platform with sort of a beefed up 20 gauge action, okay? So the aesthetics of the gun are beautiful, I'm not gonna lie. Like the 16 gauge, aesthetically speaking, is a beautiful gun. This gun is built on a 16 gauge action, okay, which is why it's such an attractive firearm. This is actually, the 1500 is actually sold in a 16 gauge semi-auto, and that's what this is built off of, which is why it looks the way that it does. It's got this big long foreend to house the gas cylinder and stuff like that, and you know, the stock is in a really nice proportion and stuff. So yeah, you know, there's something to be said about the aesthetics of it, but it weighs a lot because it's built on a 16 gauge action and it has a steel receiver, whereas this is an aluminum receiver. And let me just show you guys this real quick. I know the video's going on 20 minutes here, but I told you, Big Friday episode, right? I'm going to take the forend off, and I'm going to show you guys a couple things about this gun, which is another reason why I like this firearm so much, okay? And as you saw, the piston just come down. So, there's the barrel, all right? So in this collar of this barrel of a gas-operated shotgun, you're not going to be able to see it on camera, but there's 2 little ports in here, okay? 2 little ports down in here. As the wad of the shot column comes down, and it passes this point, some of the gases get diverted down those two little ports and into this housing here. Okay, and let me show you what happens next. Those gases hit the piston, which is this piece here. It's actually two little pieces, and you'll see it here. There you go, I separated them. And that hits this controlling arm, which is connected by these two rods. Okay, that's another difference between this gun and a lot of other semi-automatic shotguns. This actually uses two controlling rods. See, one here and one here. And when those gases hit this piston, they push back on this. Okay, then you can hear the spring. They push back on this, which works the action, ejects the older shell, and loads the new shell, and then it closes. So that's how this gun works. All right. Just wanted to show you guys really quick how the basics of an automatic, what most people call an automatic shotgun, which it's not really automatic, it's semi-automatic, and it's gas operated. Okay. I'm just going to put this together real quick. All right. When you do that, you have to reseat the barrel. This goes on like so, and you screw in your foregrip cap, and the gun's ready to go again. Now, if you shoot a lot, what you'll see is it's got these two ports here, okay, on either side of the barrel. So when the gases push back the piston, after they get past a certain point and work the action, those gases have to go somewhere. Okay, well, that's where they come out. They come out right here and here on either side of the barrel. Okay, so after a lot of firing, that part of the barrel exterior can get a little warm, so just be aware of that. So anyway, that is my choice for small game hunting. The 20 gauge shotgun primarily because of the weight and the convenience of using it, the availability of the ammunition and the cost of ammunition, and it's a very, very effective shotgun for small game hunting. Like I said before, I killed 24 deer or so with this, at least 24, let's put it that way, using a combination of slugs on some, but mostly I was shooting 3-aught buckshot, okay, the number 3 buck, and that's what I was using mostly when I shot most of these deer with this. So saying that the 20 gauge is not powerful enough to knock squirrels down out the top of a tree is just silly. If it can knock a deer down, it can knock a squirrel down, okay? I'm just going to tell you. The way that happens is like everything else when it comes to fishing and everything else, okay? Obviously, what the difference between knocking a deer down and knocking a squirrel down is the ammunition choice, right? Absolutely 3 buck would take down a squirrel, but you're not going to be eating it after that. So what you need is number 6. It's the best compromise between number of pellets, pattern density, and energy retention on target, okay? And that's what really matters. I'm not going to get too scientific because I'm already almost 25 minutes in, but you need something with enough terminal energy on target to do enough damage to humanely kill these animals when they're in the top of the tree. And no matter what gauge you choose, number 6 is probably the best. Some people hunt with 4s. They say 4 is the best. I like number 6s for the increased pattern density. It gives me more assurances that when I do put a shot on target, then I'm going to put enough pellets in this animal to kill them instantly, so that way there's no suffering or anything like that, because as a hunter, I'm really concerned with the ethics of the situation, and I'm aware of the ethics of the situation and the morals concerning the situation. So I want to produce humane, clean, instantaneous kills. So I choose number 6, 2 3/4 inch, 20 gauge shot shells, and either of these brands, and they work flawlessly for me and have done so for damn near 40 years, and I don't see me changing anytime soon because it's not necessary. Anyway, that being said, I will be at work all weekend this week. Next week, I'm going saltwater fishing again. I don't know what day. It depends on the weather, but the weather has kind of come out of those hundreds, and now we're in the mid to low 90s, and I think that's acceptable enough for me to go saltwater fishing. So I'm hoping to pull in a redfish. So we're going to try that next week. I'll try to see if I can get Louisiana blackwater fly fishing to tag along, and we'll do that. But here's everything you need to know to get started to choose your firearm. For me, it's 20 gauges and a 22 pistol. That's what I go squirrel hunting with and what I go rabbit hunting with all the time. 100% of the time, it's a 20 gauge with a 22 pistol for me. And I gave you all the reasons why. So go out, make your own decisions. You got 5 weeks to get ready. Get to it, guys.